5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Welcome back to the GHT Overland podcast. This is part 2 of our interview with Jason and Chris with OX Overland. Let's jump right back in where we left off.
It's catastrophic.
Yeah, somebody's going to die. You know?
So it's
I had the
off
beacon on my
camber
belt.
plus it's downhill.
Right.
Oh yeah, and it's a
Gotcha.
scree slope, so it's just that once there's no backing up. Once
Yeah,
you start
once you're
sliding, you jump
committed.
out of the truck.
Yeah, it's all like shale
Yep.
rock, and yeah, it was not. It's like I said, it wasn't the path itself. It was what would happen if something went wrong. And so
Well, that's smart that you were planning for the what if something could go wrong. What's our out? What happens
Everybody had
next?
all their stuff on them too. The beacon, everybody had everything near and dear to them was on their carcass.
Yeah, and I told Chris grab the
406 beacon, just in case.
Yeah.
Smart.
I don't even remember what that beacon's called. What's the InReach? Yeah, but it's the if something goes terribly wrong, hit this button.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the InReach.
Yeah. So that was something I bought right at the end because I was like, you know what? If something goes wrong and we're out in the middle of nowhere, we should probably have something. So
You turn that thing on, they'll get you within 30 seconds at the max. They got you.
Yeah, and we didn't end up using it, thank God.
Oh, no.
But
Yeah, super handy. Tell us about your kitchen. What did you guys set up for meal prep? Like, what did your average meal prep look like?
that's an embarrassing question.
You're going to be nicer, Jason. You take this one.
By the time we got to the point that we were leaving, we probably still could have used another 6 months of planning. And the thing that was sacrificed the most was the meals. Because that was just the easy thing to kind of put to the, we'll be in town every, whatever, we'll grab some stuff. And we put together this meal plan. But what happened? The guy who was going to cook for us ended up, Troy, wasn't on the team anymore. He had some personal things going on. And so Kobe took over. And it was just one of those things where it was like it just kind of went without being planned out very well. And we had an ARB fridge freezer. And, here's another huge lesson that we learned is, to have everything in bins is awesome for maybe a weekend or, week, 2 weeks. But for 44 days to be digging things out of places is maddening. It's one of those things where I think I saw Chris throw the coffee pot at least twice in the morning because you can't find it. Here's the coffee pot. Where's the coffee?
Here's the coffee. Oh, the propane's in the back of the truck. It's strapped down. My hands hurt. I can't take this stupid, ratchet strap off. And so Chris loses it quick early in the morning.
Man, it's got to have his coffee. So how are you going to organize that in the future?
Yeah, we've already started.
We're going to have a food truck follow us around.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Roach coach.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
So pretty rudimentary, right? Pretty super basic. A bunch of guys,
basic.
that's like the last thing you think of. We'll take some hot dogs, some buns, we're good.
That's exactly what what Kobe said. We'll just do burgers and dogs.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm in my 40s. I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and well, I mean, the crazy thing is some of the guys had dietary needs and couldn't eat some of the stuff we were eating, and it was like it was kind of very
that
neglected.
can ruin a trip quick.
Yeah, and it does very fast.
Well, yeah, and I mean, everybody. For lunch we had these. And let me preface this by saying this is not Kobe's fault because Kobe is not a cook.
No,
he never claimed to be a cook, but he stepped into the role and stepped up to the plate. So definitely not trashing on him. But for lunch we had these like wraps. They were like these tortilla wraps instead of bread. I'll never ever eat those again. We had those for 44 days for lunch every day.
Flour tortillas
with meat, ham, and then some mayo that was questionably cold.
Yeah. It was, and then the worst was when he switched to the pita bread, but it wasn't like the pocket pitas that we were trying to. It was just pita bread.
It was a flour tortilla that looked like a pita.
So needless to say,
So you're not going to have an answer for me on the favorite recipe I'm taking.
No.
Any recipe you have is probably better than what we have.
Not too much pasta. We'll just say that.
Yeah, we have a lot of pasta.
Okay.
But yeah, well, going forward, we actually started, and there's so many good resources. I mean, there's so many groups out there that have good resources, but we're the stubborn do-it-yourselfers, so we always try to figure it out ourselves. But what we did this time is instead of trying to figure out what meals we wanted, we kind of did it backwards and said, let's start out with ingredients and then figure out what we can make with what we have. That way we can kind of consolidate how much things we're bringing, how it's prepared, what prep work we're doing. Because, I mean, when you're on an expedition like that, food is kind of one of the last things you really want to be doing when you're out there. So the more you can be prepared and the easier things are when you get out there, and let's be honest, like the fuel you're putting into your body is the performance you're getting out of it. And I mean, and that had to play a big part in our attitude towards each other.
Absolutely.
So,
pretty sure it was, yeah.
So, I mean, eating healthy while you're out there is big. I mean, that's been a big topic of conversation whenever food comes up is we got to, we need clean food.
Got to do it better.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think people could take a lot from that. How did you guys manage laundry on the road?
Laundromats.
Yeah, pretty simple.
So you're able to just stop.
Ozarks was the worst part because everything was soaking wet, and
yeah.
the back of Kobe's truck smelled like a zoo.
Yeah, everything smelled like a zoo.
So I'm guessing kind of the same thing for bathing, for showers. When you're coming in to hit the laundromat, get gas, are you finding some place to get a quick shower? Or are you jumping in the creek? What were you doing there?
We did it. All the above.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Lakes. I feel like we mostly probably took showers in lakes and...
Yeah, it was lakes, and then we had the water pump Jason put on the Land Cruiser, so we pump out of the Roto Pack. And it was a summer trip, so it's 100 and some odd degrees. And a Roto Pack shower is pretty good at that point.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah, it makes it simple. So before we get into kind of the planning process, anything else? Like, what was the biggest challenge you faced in the entire trip? And what I want you to do is really think like maybe one of the most stressful points. I don't know if it was that scree slope you had to go down, or what would you name your number one, like, I just did not know how we were going to get out of this type situation, and what did you learn from that?
Oh man, here we go. We're gonna bring it back around to the interpersonal stuff. Like, honestly, the hardest point on the trip was in Nebraska and Kansas, because the team suffered when there wasn't a challenge to be overcome, and when you were in the flatter states, there was nothing to do, and so we just kind of. Everything kind of broke down at that.
Just
driving
at
dirt
each other.
roads
Hot,
and nothing but soy and corn and and we pretty much that. I mean, if you watch the episodes, the later episodes, basically, I mean, even the interviews, you could tell we were all kind of at each other's throats, and people were doing stuff that other people were finding offensive at that point, and I think everybody was just kind of like, we kind of had enough of each other because again. We're, sitting next to each other, driving all day. We're standing next to each other around the campground, campfire, and then we're sleeping next to each other in the car. I mean, you just don't get a break from them. I mean, unless you're in the bathroom or take a walk by yourself.
Well, you have no privacy. The only privacy you have is that seat you're in for that day.
The good part about the whole trip was the Ozarks, and what ended up happening on the trip is we came in a week early. And our family were going to meet us in Kansas City, and then we were going to all caravan back together. So we needed to be, in Kansas City at a certain time, but we got there a week early, again, traveling a lot faster than we thought we were going to. And so we ended up back at, in Missouri, kind of looking at each other like, where are we going to go? And we decided we're going to hit the Ozarks. And so we dropped down to the Ozarks, and that was probably the best way we could have capped off the trip, because now there was a whole new set of challenges. It was a new experience, and in true overland fashion, it was one of those things where it was more about the journey than the destination at that point, which was kind of a welcome change from the go up and down of the expedition life, I guess. And so we had an overland trip on our expedition, I guess you could say, and we went down to the Ozarks, and it was wet and rainy, and rivers were inflated, but we did more river crossings in 4 days than we'd done the whole trip. And
Ozarks were amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Yeah, it was our favorite spot. I mean, one of my bucket lists is to go back there during the fall whenever all the leaves are changing and stuff, because it reminded me a lot of Oregon in the terrain, but the trees were different. It had much more of like a rainforesty feel, tropical. It was a great.
The people were awesome.
Oh yeah, the people were great all along the road.
My God.
But yeah, the
Ozarks.
Ozarks.
The grandpa of the Ozarks.
Yes.
Yeah,
Cool guy, right?
Bub Pearson.
Bub Pearson. Yep.
Yeah, what I did, the story I didn't get to tell on that because I didn't have enough footage, is that a few weeks before we were there, Bub Pearson had tied a rope around himself, had one of his neighbors lower him into the well to get these big rocks that some people had thrown down the well. And this guy's 82,
something
84, something like that.
And they let him do it.
Oh, I mean, you weren't talking that guy out of it. Are you kidding me? Your Grandpa the Ozarks. He might bury you somewhere.
He would.
But
Okay,
yeah, he was a cool guy.
Jason, with you being the team lead, with all your experience now, when you're going to plan a trip, if you're going to replan the same trip or maybe a trip you're going to take in the future, what is your process for planning and any particular software or methods that you go through to do that?
Yeah, that's the question we get asked most. I actually made a tutorial on it because I was like, I keep getting asked this question. I might as well share my secrets. But when I plan a trip, and the only reason I've chosen this stuff is just because that's how it kind of happened. Again, we didn't go into this knowing anything. So I basically, for the Oregon Trail, what I did is I took several old Oregon Trail maps and just started kind of doing research to try to find the route back, I guess from Oregon to Kansas City. But and then I took those maps and used a program called Scribble Maps. It's a online based program. It's it's a Google Satellite View is what it's based off of, and you basically just drag a line. And so I basically tried to replicate that same area and try to stay as close to the Oregon Trail as I could while staying off main roads. And a lot of it we were close to the Oregon Trail. Sometimes we were pretty far away from the Oregon Trail, but like kind of our whole purpose was to try to stick as closely as we could to the actual path while staying off road. So basically I use Scribble Maps to kind of create my map, and then when we're out there we use Gaia to navigate. So we always bring paper maps too from where we are, just as backup. But the honest truth is the only person that knows how to use those is Chris over here. So
Paper backup.
Yeah.
Well, you had a backup plan if the electronics went out.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And they did too. The iPad overheated a couple times.
Several times.
Well, we're staying here for a second.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, if I remember right, you had made some makeshift sunshade for the iPad, did you not?
Yes, that was my Shemagh. I wrapped it around there, and I do believe I had a cussing session under that because I'd had like sunglasses on, and then I got my reading glasses on. It's 110 degrees. I'm sweating. I can't hear anything. There's, the floor of the passenger side of the Land Cruiser is a skillet at this point because the exhaust is right under it. It was just one of those days where it's like, wow, this is fun. If we had a paper map, we'd be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris and technology do not mix.
No, we don't.
Now, in the beginning of your trip, having more rigs with you, did that complicate things more than towards the end with only 2 rigs?
Yeah, that's always been the struggle. And that's, to be honest, one of the biggest issues that we've had with the team is just whose rig's going, what rig's going, what are we doing with that? And, me being, always trying to be the practical one, I've always said, the less is, obviously you need more than one vehicle because you need, help, but 2 is ideal for us just because, if you think about it, if it takes you an hour to get one truck through something, then it's taking you 2 hours to get 2 and 3 hours to get 3. And that's if everything goes smoothly, you know what I mean? So you're just compounding how much time you spend out there. And so, again, it's an expedition, not an overland trip. And so we're very much focused on more function and stuff than comfort, I guess. But
for what we did, two rigs, I think when everybody peeled off and it ended up being 2 rigs, I think that was about right.
Yeah.
It was about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So,
let's go over just real quick safety, security, and I don't know, maybe Chris, you're the better one to take this, or Jason, take it if you are. But and maybe with trips in the U.S., I wouldn't think of it so much. I usually use this one for trips that are more global. But any tips or ideas that you guys either do or would give our listeners regarding safety and security doing a trip like this?
It's going to sound like a cop-out, but that really depends on where you're going to go. The first thing is do your research. Because if you're going to go to South America or go to Africa or wherever, Europe, do your research, see what's happening, see what's going on, and do your research not in the mainstream media. Start looking at actual stats from the State Department and from world sources, and so be educated in that fashion. As far as security goes,
more animals for us than
yeah, it was more animals for us, and I mean we were up in bear country, so we take our food and put it inside the cab of the truck, and just real simple stuff that a lot of people do.
Safety, though, is kind of like a thing that we've been talking about a whole lot more lately on this trip than we did on the
last because this trip's going to be a lot more challenging. Safety with us on our trip more so was, did we find a good place to camp where we're not going to get killed by, a dead standing tree blowing down. This trip was pretty mild as far as the animals went.
Yeah.
A couple bobcats, nothing huge. Yeah. But safety in numbers. I mean, if you're going to go to another country and you're going to overland and stuff, the more the merrier. And don't look like a target. Know the laws of the country and don't look like a target. And if you're informed before you go in there, we shouldn't have any problems.
Yeah.
Things happen, but down the road, people are like, oh, I'll buy a gun when I get down there or whatever. No, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So working on the road, how much production did you guys do during the trip? And would you change that at all next time?
I feel pretty comfortable with the way we did our production. We've been working for, 2.5 years before that. And like I said, we've filmed since the very beginning. And so, we've had people come and go. Jesse's not quite as involved as he was at the very beginning, but he's been a huge resource for us to kind of help us and guide us on the way we film. But the other thing is like what I'm learning now, being a little bit more involved in production and stuff, is the style of shooting we do isn't very typical because it's so run and gun, and it's not your traditional planned out kind of production. I mean, most of it's just, you're trying to capture what's there. And so
True. Hey, on communication, what did you guys use? Were you using, I don't know if you were communicating with outside the team or were you using ham radio, CB, like a FRS radio?
We used, we had quad band radio in each of the rigs. And so we could operate on CB, ham, or two-way FRS. We ran ham most of the time. We all had personal Bofang ham radios for each person, and then we, like I said, we had the I think TYT quad band radios is what we used on the and Tank. There again is our guru.
Yes, Tank
he set it all up for us and
communicate with the mothership.
Did you have a preventative maintenance schedule that you followed during your trip?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. When we got into wherever we're going to camp every night, we would, one of my jobs was to go over the vehicles, check all the fluids. Well, it was me. All right. To check all the fluids, crawl under each truck, and just do a visual of everything, just from front to back under it, just to see if there's anything that happened or something that might happen. And, yeah, it was exactly, just a full-blown every night. Just go over the entire both trucks, and that way when we turn the key in the morning, we know we're good to go. If something breaks, that means it broke that day.
Yeah, and I think the biggest issue we had was the electrical on the trip. That was pretty much the biggest. One of the things was the heat was so hot that, our famous last words is we don't need this air conditioning belt because if the pioneers did it without air conditioning, we can too. The thing we didn't take into consideration is that it's not us that might need the air conditioning. It was the electronics.
Remember that nice ham radio he just talked about? Yeah, that thing died, day 5?
Yeah, day 5 we lost one of the quad band radios because we had it tucked away in under the dash, and it just got so hot up there that it burnt out. And we also lost a pure sine inverter.
Oh, yeah.
For the same reason.
We lost 2 handhelds as well.
Yeah, and 2 handheld radios.
Yeah, the heat killed us on those.
Yeah, it was one of those things where, to be honest, it made it a lot harder on the team, too. It was one of those things where you're like, you drive hot, you sleep hot, you wake up hot.
You get grumpy.
Yeah.
If you're not used to it. And that's.
So having air conditioning is.
It's for the equipment. I would do it again with no air conditioning, without a question. But it would have been nice to have that radio on LC the whole time.
Yeah, well, it would have been nice to be cool a little bit, too, because it was hot.
1 spare tire or 2 per vehicle?
1.
Did we ever use any of them?
Nope.
The only time that, as a team, that we've ever had any issues, Kobe broke a valve stem. at one point.
Oh, I wasn't there for that one.
Yeah, that was the earlier trip.
Yeah, no issues with tires at all.
No.
How much fuel capacity did you guys have? Sounded like you went through a lot more. You weren't able to go as far as you thought you would.
Yeah, we had 25 gallons on the Land Cruiser in the tank, and then 5 more on the back.
Yep.
And the Ranger had 19-gallon capacity, and we had four
on the Ranger.
Rotopack.
Yeah. We didn't carry a whole lot of extra gas, but we mapped it out so that we wouldn't get ourselves into a pickle if something went down.
Yeah, we tried to. The thing that we tried to do is try to keep the Rotopacks and stuff as a backup. I mean, we always tried to, like, you know, if we were going to be close to a town, we tried to fill up just because it would just irked everybody to have to come to town so much.
We wanted to be on the trail. We didn't want to be in town. We didn't want to have to go, we got to get gas. We got to go to the grocery store and all this other stuff. And I was especially grumpy.
But we're mitigating that now with, we got a 20-gallon tank for the Land Cruiser.
Yeah, auxiliary tank.
And then the new rig we're bringing is we're doing a GX 470 build right now. And we needed something that had a little bit more grunt because we're probably going to bring a trailer with us on this next expedition. And so with the V8 of that GX 470 and with all the new support for that vehicle coming out, and I've always been a fan of the Prado 120, so it was a natural progression for us, I think. And to me, it was still in the Land Cruiser family, and so it felt right.
I've crawled under it.
So
Okay. How did you guys calculate your fuel needs and how far it would take you so you knew exactly when that point was that you didn't need to really use the Rotopack but needed to get into town and get some more gas?
Yeah, basically, once we started to get into 1/2 to 3/8, we started kind of like trying to figure out where we were.
Okay.
And then, you know, tried to fill up as soon as we could after that. Because the hard part is, like, we actually, looking back, we probably could have for the most part, pushed that a lot further. But you just don't know because, again, we'd never been through this area. There was very little, like, you know, resources as far as trying to figure out what was around there. And as any, you know, off-roader knows or overlander knows, you know, the terrain itself dictates how fast you're going and how far you're going. You know what I mean? And so, you know, it could look easy and you could be, you know, 100 miles from the next gas station and you're like, oh, that'd be easy. And then you hit, you know, a section of trail that takes you 4.5 hours to get through. And then you've burned up most of your fuel and now you don't have enough to get there. You know what I mean? And so it was always like, you know, and again, big frustration for the team, but it was always one of those things that we're trying to be aware of and not get ourselves into a situation. Because, I mean, we put a lot of work into this. We didn't want to be the idiots who ran out of gas out there.
Yeah.
So
Good. How much water did you guys carry?
Quite a bit of water, huh? It wasn't enough.
It was 2 gallons per guy per day. That was our baseline of water, and we carried more than that. So,
And did that work pretty good for you?
We had to fill up on water a lot.
We supplemented a lot, like with.
Did you filter? Did you have a filter method to do?
We boiled twice.
Yeah.
But that was just to supplement the rest of our stuff. But no, we typically, when we went in to get gas, we just either fill up the Rotopacks or grab more water.
Yeah, and that was a hard part too because we were constantly. I mean, that's just, a lot of Chris was doing this is trying to find a water source we could camp next to so we could, you know, refill water and
bathe.
You know, bathes. But you know, moving forward, that's something that we're definitely going to have a water filtration system to kind of help facilitate that, and then more storage too. That was part of the reason for bringing a trailer too. Is like, you know, it's a little bit of a hindrance, especially for this next trip that we're on. It's going to be a lot more intense terrain wise, but you know, to be able to have a little more capacity in water and you know, just having a little bit more, you know, storage and, you know, for the production gear and all that stuff, it just seemed like a necessary evil.
Okay, so you've teased us a little bit, Jason, on this next expedition. What do you want to share with our listeners on what that looks like and what you're putting together?
Yeah, so this next expedition, actually, the irony of it was we talked a lot about whether or not this was a one-time trip or if we were going to do this again or what was going to happen, and we all kind of had different opinions on how that was going to go down, but the one thing that we could never kind of figure out is what was next. I mean, we talked about the Lewis and Clark Trail. We've talked about, you know, some of the other historic routes.
California,
you know, we've talked about going outside the country, and you know, there was never anything that kind of like had that romance of the Oregon Trail, I guess, until we hit South Pass City, Wyoming. And we ended up going into this little outlaw town in the middle of nowhere, and it was their little mercantile. I think the population was like, it was less than 100. It was like 80.
It doubled when we rolled in town.
Yeah, so there was like
Is that the
nobody in
ghost
there.
town you guys went into?
That was
That was
Different? Okay, go ahead.
Wait,
that
am I
was-
saying this wrong? Is not South Pass City? Is
I thought
South
it
Pass
was
City where
Atlantic
the
City.
Atlantic City? You're right.
Okay, it was Atlantic City.
It was Atlantic City.
Wyoming
Sorry,
is where we were at. It
South
was
Pass
a
City was a historic
Wild
town right
West
before
town.
that.
Yeah.
So Atlantic City was the outlaw town, and the mercantile there was the only thing in town. So we're going to meet a friend there. So we stopped for lunch, and we went into the mercantile. And in your classic like small town thing, it was like the three locals that were in there turned around and looked at us like, "What are these city slickers doing?"
Yeah.
But, and so, we sat down, had some lunch, and we started talking to him about what we were doing. Of course, that's a big icebreaker is when you start talking about the Oregon Trail and all that stuff, people start, perking up. And so they started telling us about the Outlaw Trail, which was something completely foreign to us. And all the research I did, never heard of it. But it was essentially, there was no established outlaw trail necessarily, but it was the corridor that they took basically from El Paso, Texas up through Montana. And it was kind of the corridor that they robbed on and had their hideouts on and, kind of did their whole thing on. And, the thing that was exciting to us was I think the Oregon Trail was an awesome trip and it was a cool opportunity and it was something that we all got really inspired by, but it didn't have, I don't know if we really identified with the pioneers as much as we do with the outlaws.
We identified more with outlaws.
And that was kind of one of the things. And then, as you can imagine, like I said earlier, the pioneers took the path of least resistance. The outlaws took the path of most resistance, and they were looking for the hardest route, so they were out of the way of the law. And so our route's going to basically go from, we're going to go from the Canadian border up in Montana all the way down to Mexico, right in El Paso, Texas.
Juarez.
And it basically follows the path right through the Continental Divide, pretty much. Goes through New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and then Montana.
Yep.
And then we'll finish, or we'll start at the Canadian border and work our way down. But some of the terrain is...
Oh, it's going to be...
Yeah, it's going to be pretty brutal. And so we're trying to figure out a lot of things. The cruiser still needs a lot of TLC from the last trip, and we need to kind of go through her and then, getting the GX ready. And there's a lot of things going on right now, and there's a lot of things up in the air, but the Outlaw Trail is our next expedition, and we're working towards that. A possible September 1st departure, but maybe a little further out than that. Yeah, and then, again, the terrain on this is going to be way more intense than what we've faced before, which is exciting for us. We're really looking forward to that and the challenge, I guess, because up until we hit the Ozarks really was the kind of the cap on the trip that made us feel like we've at least stretched our legs a little bit. But for the most part, we had that ridge back. We had a pretty gnarly cattle crossing where
trail.
it's pretty technical rock garden kind of area. But we really didn't get pushed to the max, I would say, and that's one thing we're looking. Because I'm pretty confident that there's going to be some challenges we can overcome on this next expedition. So.
Oh, for sure. This next one's going to be off the charts.
Yeah, so we're excited about it. And,
good. Well, good luck to you in planning that and putting that together. So, guys, one of the things that's really important to us is giving back and doing good in the world. So, what are your thoughts on either stuff that you either do or want to do, or opportunities our listeners might have while they're on the road to do good things for other people as overlanders?
Yeah, as overlanders, I feel like
passing it on, what we've learned. Like for my part, I can pass on. I can show somebody how to build a fire, and if they pay attention, they'll carry that with the rest of their life, like a tool.
Right.
Much the same as recovery tactics, vehicle tactics with the overlanding. Jason can show people the proper way to use Gaia or whatever navigation program to where, because any tool is only as good as the dude using it,
right,
or the woman. And I think passing on our information is one of the main ways in an everyday fashion that we can do it. That we kind of carry it forward and help people.
Absolutely. And, like you've touched on before, the thing that people like about us is we're regular. We are regular dudes. Swing a hammer for a living.
I know.
That's, we're not, anything special. We don't have a huge budget. It was just something that we wanted to do. And that's, how we learned. And I feel like some of the lessons you learn the hard way are the, strongest lessons. And that's, if we can help somebody avoid the same mistakes we did, that's, we've done our service, I feel like, And then again, the history side of things is, I think more so for me than most of the guys, but I've always been kind of a history buff. And I just like that, trying to bring it to a different community that might not, we've had our videos shown in schools for history and all kinds of things. So there's that aspect of making it relevant to I guess our generation, you know what I mean? And kind of keeping that history alive in some fashion.
Okay, good. Well, let's wrap things up with some fun facts about you guys. So what's a favorite drink in the morning?
Coffee. And what did you drink, Jason? He's not a coffee guy.
Wasn't water. I'm a smoothie guy, but we didn't have smoothie stuff.
You did some Red Bulls here and there, didn't you?
No.
Jason doesn't do coffee. We're pretty sure Jason's a cyborg. We're not going back to that.
Very good. And at night, any favorite drinks to wind things down?
I'm a cider guy. By choice, but by beer doesn't fare well with my stomach. So, Two Towns Bright Cider is what. Well, I constantly joke around about the fact that I'm trying to find a cider that tastes like beer, but I don't think that's going to happen. So that's my drink of choice. And then Chris?
Mine was the pink lemonade that Josh and Haley brought to us when we were up in the middle of Wyoming. I've been drinking water for, days and days, and they brought us these ice-cold pink lemonade in a can, and it was, oh my God, I think I drank 4 of them in like 10 minutes.
So what's your best advice to aspiring overlanders like us?
You know what? Just do it.
Yeah.
Stop planning and go do it. That's, I've said before that we could have used another 6 months of planning. Sometimes you just got to do it. And the thing is, it's like, this was a path that took all of us to a place where we didn't expect to be. But, like I said, we weren't even sure if we were going to do this again. But it's actually, for most of us, inspired a kind of different lifestyle and kind of adopted that more traveler's nomadic lifestyle rather than being tied down to the everyday life. But you got to take steps to do it. You know what I mean? And it's like, I feel like too many people, want to do something, but the only way to get there is to make it a priority.
Okay, cool. And how can people learn more about you?
Oh, yeah. Go to our website, www.outlawexpeditions, no E on the expeditions, and an S at the end, .com. And you can check out all of our stuff. You can visit us on Instagram, Facebook. OX Overland is the Instagram and Facebook. And then, of course, our YouTube channel. And check out our documentary series, and you can actually watch about all this crazy stuff that's happened. And
One Lane Road is our YouTube channel.
Oh, that's the name of the documentary series. It's just Outlaw Expeditions or OX Overland.
Perfect. Any business or organization you want to mention that our listeners should check out?
Oh, yeah. We've got lots of people.
We got a ton.
CBT Tents, they're provided us our tents. And then, of course, ARB and Warren is actually right in our backyard, and they're great people over there, and they really have a heart for the overlanders. For the very beginning, before we were really anything, they had helped us out, and so they've always been a huge...
They jumped on board right in the beginning.
Yeah, they've been a huge help. We didn't really have any followers or anything at that point, but they really saw the value in what we were doing. And, of course, we're a local, so I think that helped a little bit. But, yeah, and then, Outer Limit Supply, there's traction jacks that we're connected with.
Off the grid.
Yeah, so there's a whole handful of people that, takes a mountain of people to try to facilitate an expedition like that, so... We appreciate all the help we get.
Good. Before we wrap it up, anything we missed or useful resources that our listeners should check out?
Useful resources. I've got some. If you guys are interested in navigation, that was kind of my expertise on that end of things. And although I don't really know how to read a map properly, the technical side of GPS navigation and stuff, I'm pretty familiar with. So if you check out our YouTube channel, you can see the tutorials on how we build our maps and then what we do to execute them on the trail. So.
Yeah. Okay, good. So, hey, guys, thank you so much for your time. We are grateful and truly humbled. You've given us such an amazing look into your world. So, safe travels to you guys. I'm really looking forward to future adventures that you do, and we hope we catch up on the road sometime.
Absolutely. We appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we do. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Cheers. And that's a wrap. What an awesome chat with Jason and Chris. There was a ton of great lessons and experience that they shared. If you're planning an expedition, their stories just gave you the inside view of what makes a trip like this work and where the challenges are. I hope you pulled as much value from their experiences as we did. It's a good idea to visit the show notes on our website at ghtOverland.com. Just click on podcast, then select the OX Overland episode. All the details and links will be there, along with Jason's mapping secrets. Thank you for listening to the GHT Overland podcast. Be sure to rate the episode, 5 stars of course, to keep the web magic flowing for us, so we can reach as many overlanders and aspiring overlanders as possible. Cheers.